Welcome to the Everything Co-working podcast. This is your host, Jamie Russo. Thank you for joining me today. I haven't done a solo episode in some time, so I'm excited to be here. I want to talk today about helping your team optimize leads. Before we dive in, I hope you're all are well, and I want to share a little bit about what I've been up to. First, I missed Juicy for the first time in like 12 years. So, for all of you who were there, I'm sorry I wasn't there and didn't get to see you. It was a tricky schedule this year. It was right after spring break. So, I was off for spring break, and I have a number of big projects that I'm working on and just could not take another week away from the office. So, I missed seeing everyone, connecting everyone. I love to see the debriefs coming in and on LinkedIn, et cetera. And I will absolutely be in Denver for the GWA conference in September. So I hope to see you there. So I have been working on a number of projects. I like to share what I'm up to because you're probably wondering what's happening in the industry. And sometimes you're probably also wondering, what do I do when I'm not recording podcasts? So I have been working on a number of projects over the last few months. I'm working with a number of landlords who are trying to understand the co-working model for various reasons. They may want to operate themselves. They may have a partnership proposal that they want to evaluate. They may have a partner and they want to figure out, is this the right partner? So I've been working with them on feasibility studies for the markets that they're in. And then we do a full custom pro forma based on their space so that they can truly understand the drivers of what makes the model work, what the business looks like in terms of revenue, expenses, and we build a full pro forma over time, help them understand what it takes to start up, and then help them make decisions. There are a lot of trade-offs when it comes to opening a co-working space. If you have your own co-working space, you know this. And if you're working on designing a business model, make sure you take a look at our co-working startup school because there's a lot that goes into creating the right model for you. The first thing I always ask is, what are your goals? Because everybody has a different goal for what they want to achieve. For a landlord, oftentimes they think, well, maybe they could outpace the rent that they could get from a typical tenant, or they have another business and they're creating a space and they have thought about this model and want to look into it and see what it looks like and does it make sense for them. But if you've spent any time working on this business model, you know there's a lot that goes into what it takes to open one and evaluating the return and the capital required to start one and the trade-offs around the density and the size of space, et cetera. I did a project to help somebody evaluate the purchase of a co-working space. And I'm working with another asset owner who has a beautiful space. They're looking for an operator to help them run it. It's going to take some creativity. It's sizable and needs some adjustments. So that's a really fun project that I think is going to be really creative, and we'll find a great operator to take that space. And then the one-on-one focus I'm working on outside of those types of projects, I'm mostly working on sales funnel optimization. So I work with a number of operators who they might be running ads, they might have a new team, and they're trying to really put all the pieces together in terms of optimizing basically how many leads they close, right? So they've had, kind of some systems in place, but have a sense that it's not optimized and they need to create the right systems for their team, the right tracking mechanisms, the right transparency, the right lead management cadence, all those things to make sure that every lead that comes in gets the best chance possible of getting closed. So that's what I want to talk about today. I've just been spending a lot of time really thinking about this on behalf of the folks that I work with, trying to create systems and documentation and really think about, what creates success and what gets in the way. So we're just going to dive into that a little bit, kind of high level here on the podcast. So let's do it. Okay, so I'm just going to start zoomed out, which is that we talk a lot about what this industry is about. It's about people, it's about space, it's about hospitality, it's about real estate. And when it comes down to it, it's about customer acquisition, right? So when you are operating a co-working space, there are a lot of aspects of the business that you have to manage. You need members. So when you're first opening, you need to ramp up and get to stabilized occupancy. And you need a system to help you do that as efficiently and as fast as possible. And then even once you're at stabilization, most operators have churn every single month. So you need a customer acquisition system that that fills you up and then covers the churn that you see every month and nets you more members than you lose, right? So most co-working spaces are going to lose some members every month, and then they need to bring on more members than what they have lost. Otherwise, they're going to see declining revenues month over month, and that's when you see a big problem. So in order to bring on new members, you have to have leads at the top of your sales funnel. And in order to have leads, you need to have systems that bring leads into your website, probably from your Google business profile, maybe from running ads, maybe from referrals, maybe from other activities you're doing in the community. And then you and your team need a process for managing those leads all the way through until you either close the lead or bless and release the lead. And then it goes into a nurture stage. So there are 4 aspects of this that you need to have in place to be successful. You need a CRM. And some of you listening probably have a small space and you may be operating kind of at a different level of kind of operational complexity. So just take what you can from this conversation. I'm going to really focus on the spaces for whom it makes sense to have a CRM. So you need to have a CRM in place. You need a lead cadence for your team to use to manage leads as they come in. It needs to be very clear to them what's expected because, tell me if this is you, you think it's clear that a lead needs to be followed till the end until they say no. But your team feels awkward doing that. Your team has probably been hired. Now, let's address the team. You may have folks who have sales experience and who are of a profile that is more sales oriented. That's amazing. Even then, keep listening because you're going to want to have these things in place. Some of you have a team that was hired to be community managers. So they are nurturers, maybe they're more on the operational side, and then you kind of stuck lead management into their role. And the lead management might have been on the job description and they read it. And you asked some questions about their ability to do this, but it's not what they're there for. And probably they're dropping some balls. And so if you don't have a process in place to report to make sure that they are compliant and to review the KPIs that they are responsible for in the lead management process, your leads are probably falling through the cracks. So you need a CRM, you need a lead cadence system and clear guidance and training. You need a way to audit compliance, and you need to track and report on KPIs with your team ideally every single week. Okay, I'm not going to go into CRM options in this discussion, but right size it for your business. You can always change if you need to. It's a pain to change, and it's also not impossible. So you can start small and then ease into it. What I would say is that for most of you, HubSpot is not the right solution. It is very expensive and you won't use most of its features. If you have multiple locations, then it might be a fit. But if you have 1 or 2 locations, it is probably not. It is probably far more expensive than what you need in order to optimize your leads. So Pipedrive, very simple, straightforward, cheap. ActiveCampaign, more advanced, co-level, more comprehensive, and built specifically for co-working spaces. But I don't want to kind of get bogged down into that. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of try to stay a little high level here. So if you have a CRM, you probably do. One of the challenges might be that you're underusing it. And this is separate from the HubSpot issue. It can be any CRM. It's possible that you have pipeline stages. They exist, but your team is not using them. Leads are just sort of floating around. Leads might sit in the same stage for weeks with no activity, and you're not auditing that. And so you don't know. And so they're just hovering in this middle land. They're not closed. We're not calling them dead, and they're not being actively managed. Maybe you have automation capabilities, but you haven't set up any automation capabilities. And so you're missing opportunities to stay connected with leads or to make sure that your speed to lead is optimized. And then you have reporting capabilities, but you're not running them and you're not reviewing them with your team on a regular basis. Some of you may be doing some of those things. Awesome. I usually find at least one major gap in that process. I think one of the most common challenges is the lead management cadence. It is very possible, again, that you have pipeline stages in your CRM, but from a practical perspective, your team just is not either wasn't trained or hasn't practiced enough or isn't like motivated enough or isn't the right personality to actually manage the leads through the pipelines. So I often see that leads are not being responded to quickly. That's changing quickly. A lot of you are adopting AI tools that can immediately respond to leads and get them some contact right away, whether your team responds or not. And that is ideal. And then your team, in an ideal cadence, which we'll talk about in a minute, there's quick response from a human, and then that lead gets managed to the next goal, which is probably to book a tour. And then there are touch points along the way to make sure that tour shows up for their tour, and then various touch points to try to get them closed. And then there's the lead who doesn't respond. You all have many, many, many of those sitting in your pipeline. And honestly, that's one of the bigger opportunities because the easy leads are the ones that are sort of closing themselves. And those are probably the leads that your team is closing. It is the more challenging ones that you need to project manage, that you need to keep up with, that are asking questions that aren't getting answered, that are kind of getting stuck in one of those pipeline stages. So that's why you want compliance reports and you want to track your KPIs. So in terms of cadence, we just did a training on this for our community manager group and our owners who are in our owner operator membership. But this is such a big opportunity because, again, you might think that your team is managing this. Why? Because you told them to. You trained them on it and you said, this is what you do with a lead. But again, unless you're auditing it, they're probably not. So you want to understand and then clearly document, how does the lead get touched when they enter the system? Is it automated? If it's automated, how quickly is there a human contact made after that? And one of the playbook rules that we have in our template playbook and that some of my clients follow is that every lead needs to be completely and every new lead and any lead that needs a follow-up has to be managed before 11 o'clock in the morning. So that's like the buildup from overnight. By 11, that's your focus. Because what do we see happen? Community managers or other team members, again, unless you have the scale to have dedicated sales team, that if your team has other priorities and sales is not their favorite activity, then they are making the coffee, talking to members, managing the mail, zhuzhing the pillows, cleaning up the conference rooms, doing all the things that's, on their agenda and one of the hats that they wear. And then if and when they have time, they sit down and do the lead management. And by then it's too late if you are competing against other people, other operators who are prioritizing lead management because people are so impatient today. Think about yourself. Sometimes, I do this all the time, right? Think about yourself when you make a purchase, what your expectation is, what your time frame is. Most of the time, you're probably trying to do things really quickly, especially today in the age of AI. It's just like nuts how fast we expect things to go, right? So you want all the options presented. You want to understand what the pricing is. You want to get all your questions answered. You want to book the tour. You want to come in. You just want to make all these decisions quickly. That there's a segment of people who want to do that. And if you don't get the responses you need, you're moving on to the next. This is a case for memberships, for meeting rooms, for event spaces. We have some clients with great event spaces and they just don't put in the follow-up work. I think event space is a challenging one because oftentimes it's like on the side to-do list for people. It's not work related. And so they really need to be project managed. And oftentimes they're sitting in that like follow-up pipeline stage, not getting followed up with. So back to my point, you have competitors who are responding quickly. They may not be the best fit for your customer. You might think you're winning on a from a design standpoint. Your hospitality is better. Your member events are better. All those things are better and also somewhat invisible to your prospect until they get to know you. So they might get to know your competitor faster because they're responding faster. So the speed to lead, we've talked about this a lot, but how this shows up is that your team doesn't have a KPI around how quickly they respond to leads. There's no rule that you've set that says all leads are acted upon by 11 a.m., for example. So I absolutely recommend that. And then you have to audit it. And I have a compliance report that I can talk through in a second that I run for clients and teach them how to run so that they can do that on their own and they can check. Because if you're not measuring, it's not going to happen, at least not 100% of the time. So again, your team really needs to understand the expectations. What is the priority of the leads specifically? Not just that you respond, but by when. What does the pre-tour contact sequence look like? Am I texting? Am I calling? If I'm calling, what am I saying? What am I asking? How many times am I calling? If a lead doesn't respond, what does that cadence look like? When is the lead dead? How many times do I reach out to them? How do I reach out to them? And I see all sorts of craziness happen in CRMs. You assume that these things are common sense. A lead will text and the salesperson will call. A lead will call and the salesperson will text. Like there are a lot of nuances and specifics that you need to train your team on that you might be assuming that they understand. So this stuff has to be really documented and really clear and to the extent possible built into your CRM so that they're kind of following a system and a checklist that like kind of forces them along through the CRM. But that takes a lot of build out and not everybody has that in their CRM. And making other decisions like how much of the nurture is automated versus human. Again, how many automated messages go out? How personalized are they? How do I see that's another problem I see is a lot of automated messages that are going out that don't read the context in the conversation above. So a lead will fill out a form and say, I'm interested in a private office for one. And then you've got an automated message that's coded in that says, hey, welcome. We're so excited. Can you tell us what you're interested in? They just filled out the form. They just told you. And now you ask them the same question again. So even, when you design these things, you have to be so hands-on or have somebody on your team that just has their eyes on this all the time. So that you can design a lot of things. You can automate a lot of aspects of this, but you have to audit it constantly to make sure that the lead is having the experience that you expected. Even if you tested, it's hard to test all the lead flows, right? And anticipate. And if this isn't your expertise, then it's even harder because you just don't totally know what you don't know. Okay, and designing a lead cadence. We've been talking about this a little bit. So we have a playbook that we've given to our members that specifies what the lead cadence looks like by day. So day 0, they get an automated message as soon as they place an inquiry that says, thank you, we're so excited. Our team's going to reach out to you shortly. If you need to book a meeting room at our event space, you can do this right here. That's another thing I see happen a lot is if you are behind on adopting a platform such as Office R&D or FlexSpace, Office R&D's Growth Hub or FlexSpace.ai, then your team is like manually dealing with meeting room or event space requests or even day offices or virtual mail purchases. That stuff is all e-commerce today. So you're behind and you need to get going, and your team should not be touching all of those leads. Those should be really automated unless there's a question. Again, don't not have a human available to support, But your lead should be able to do those things really easily whenever they want, even when your team is not working. So you need to optimize that e-commerce. There was a little bit of a sidetrack there. Back to our lead cadence. So your team needs to know, okay, this is what's happening. The system immediately reaches out. And then as soon as I see that lead, I am calling or texting or following up via email. I'm not going to go into sales training here. Make it as personal as possible and reflect back how the user contacted you as much as possible. So our playbook has day 0, day 0.5, day 2, day 3, day 5, day 7, day 10, all the way through day 14. And if we have not gotten a response, this is contact with a lead that has not responded, then we bless and release and put them in our nurture sequence. So then you need branches for, okay, what happens if the lead does respond and have questions? This happens. What if the lead books a tour? This is the contact that they get before their tour, and so on. And that needs to be documented, and they need to be trained on it. So, and this is where I tend to see things just kind of not happening as you might envision. This is like one of those like Instagram, memes, like what I think is happening in my sales processes and what's really happening in my sales processes. So you think it's all running magically as you designed it, but unless you have these things in place, it's probably not. So what happens when, what tends to cause mistakes? No documented processes. So the team members just like vibe coding their lead management, right? They're just rolling along, kind of doing what they think feels right, which is always less than what the lead needs when they aren't responding, or it's always slower than what the lead needs, or less personalized, or something. So you want to get really clear with them. You want to audit, you want to tweak. You're going to constantly be reviewing these processes, not every day, but every week. You're going to be running through your CRM and actually reading conversations and just checking and identifying. This is what I've been spending a lot of time doing with my clients. This is how I create their playbooks that are custom to them. And then this is how we run our compliance reports and then update as needed. So no documented processes, or they haven't been trained. There's too much manual work. They don't have the tools they need to automate, and they don't have the accountability. So nobody's running a compliance report and not reviewing the KPIs with them. So they're just vibe coding their way through their day. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about compliance. Here's are a couple of other things that I see happen. I often see, once sort of this training gets in place and there's a focus put on lead management, that the team becomes superheroes at responding to new leads. They are on it. They're calling them right away. They're texting, they're interacting, and then the lead loses some momentum. Maybe they come in and then they won't respond, or maybe they've said they want a tour, but they haven't booked the tour, or they've asked a question and they don't respond. And then the team just sort of abandons them mid-funnel and just leaves them sitting there in needs follow-up. If you log into your CRM, tell me how long that column is. Tell me how many contact cards there are in your needs follow-up column, right? And we know that this is totally normal. It's a pain in the butt because there naturally are a lot of leads who are not going to work their way through the pipeline as quickly as we'd like and as definitively as we'd like. So they're ghosting, they're indecisive, but they need management. So make sure that you're running a compliance report. So you can create a compliance report. You can eyeball what's in your CRM. Certainly you can go in there and take a look. So I have created some automated reports, and what they do is they go into the CRM, and you can do this with like a Claude Cowork or Claude Code. I'm a Claude user now, completely moved over from ChatGPT. And you create a report that goes into the CRM and reads the contact records and pulls and compares what's happening against what is ideal. So you've said every lead needs an outreach before 11 a.m. New leads, follow up. There's a 14-day cadence that gets followed. This is what it looks like. Evaluate the follow-up against the 14-day cadence. There's always a post-tour booking thank you message that goes out, or a phone call. The emails are personalized, most of them. You can decide which ones, which not. So you create criteria, and then you tell the reporter, to go in and evaluate the leads against the criteria, and then it'll give you a score. So that's what I do for some of my clients every 2 weeks. We run those reports and get a score. And again, this is generally what I see happening. Great scores for new lead management. And then once they get to the middle and have asked some questions, or you're trying to get them to book a tour, but they're just not being as responsive, we tend to abandon them. So what happens if your team, if you find a gap in compliance, the compliance report doesn't look good? First question, does this person just need more support or training? Again, if this process is new to your team, they need to know exactly what to do. And then you need to check on them to make sure they're doing it, because they might sort of quietly be, just letting go of the portion that they don't like or takes too much time, or that they're actually not clear on, even though they had some training. So you need to check in with them, and you need to run those compliance reports every couple of weeks, because you also might think they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. If you just glance at your CRM and you kind of look at the pipeline and you're like, okay, looks good. Or they might self-report that they're doing great, but they're not. And again, we often find this is such a challenge in our industry, because if you don't have a team that was hired to do sales because they love it, then they were hired to do primarily another role, and sales may not be their favorite. So they might be killing it on the other hats that they wear, and sales is harder for them, less pleasant, etc. So you have to kind of figure out, how am I going to manage this? If you train them and you're showing them what's, good looks like, and they're just not doing good and they're not following the steps, then it may not be a training problem, and you might not have the right person in that seat. Okay, I do want to address the question of incentives. When it comes down to it, if someone's been trained and they're not following the process, I don't think it matters what the incentives are, what the bonus is for closing a tour, what their commission is if they're on a commission plan. They just don't want to do the work. And so whatever you pay them, it does not matter. You cannot pay somebody enough to do work that they don't enjoy. You just can't. It doesn't work that way. And most humans are not actually motivated by external things like money. They want to really love their job, and they want to love the work that they do every day. So if you have not hired somebody who loves sales and demands commission and an incentive plan that aligns with closing deals, then the incentive plan is just not going to matter. So it's not about tweaking the incentive plan. It is about the fact the person just does not want to do this work, and then they're not going to do it, or they're going to do it and they're going to hate it and they're going to leave. So you just need to be really honest about this challenge. And again, if you don't have compliance, I don't love the word compliance, but it's the clearest word to use here, then you will not close leads well. Your KPIs will be in the tank, and you will not have the business that you thought you were going to have. So let's talk about the KPIs that you want to be looking at. You want to do this primarily, I would segment it out, if you can figure out how to do this. Not hard. Again, ask Claude Code. In a couple of ways. By product type, because closing, book tours, the KPIs we're going to follow for private offices, for example, are very different than for meeting room bookings. So I would segment out your KPIs, which we're going to run through in a second here, by product type. And then you also want to track organic leads versus paid leads. And you can spend a whole bunch of time with, like, how do you want to categorize your organic leads? I do this with clients all the time. We brainstorm this giant list, and then we're like, you know what? It doesn't really matter. They're either paid or organic. And paid means they came from like a Meta ad that you paid for, or a Google ad that you paid for, generally. They could be from referral partners, but we generally are talking about paid digital ads. So what is it that you want to track? You want to track total leads that come in, whether they're organic or paid, by location if you have multiple locations, total tours booked, number that were paid, number that were organic, total tours showed, paid versus organic, and then conversion rate. So lead to tour booked by paid and organic, tour show up. So of the tours booked, what percentage showed up, and then tour closed from those that showed up. And these are very, very telling metrics. And if you are paying for ads, it's super important that you track these because it will help you. Well, this is how you run your ROI calculations for your ad spend. And it will give you a sense of, what percentage of your leads are paid versus organic. And I can tell you from a number of the clients that I work with that oftentimes a high percentage of the leads are paid. But what you really want to look at is how they're performing through the rest of the sales funnel, because it may be that your organic leads are much smaller, but they're the ones that are converting. And you have to do a lot of testing to know, how strong these numbers hold. There are a lot of factors that can impact this, but you can't make decisions or pull levers without tracking this and testing. So you really, really want to have this data and be tracking it. And this is just like the most basic, simple. These are the most basic, simple KPIs that you want to be tracking. Okay. And how do you get your KPIs? Okay. So your CRM may have really good native reporting. It is my experience that you can't do all of it. Like I'm working with a lot of clients on the effectiveness of their ad spend, and the ad spend is not tracked in the CRM. So we have to pull the data on leads and conversion rates and run them against ad spend and ad performance, which is a separate report. So we have to create a report that combines those. So for me, the easiest way to do this is to drop out CSV files from your CRM and then kind of create a little custom report. But there are different ways to make this happen. Again, you may have good enough native reporting, and if you're not, that you can kind of customize. If you're not running ads and you don't need to worry about paid versus organic, that simplifies it as well. But there are a lot of simple ways to create your own dashboards. Do automate this, because if you make your team show up and like fill in an Excel file, brutal. If they're coming to the sales meeting and they have to create some custom report that's not just like kind of automated, or they have to like look it all up and type it all in and come to the sales meeting, brutal. And speaking of sales meeting, you want to have one weekly. So have an agenda. Here's what we're looking through. Here's what we're tracking. We're going through the pipeline. Here's where the team's stuck. They need input. You coach and you stay on top of the lead management process. So again, what gets attention makes progress, something like that. But that is absolutely true. So again, just to kind of wrap up, make sure you have the right CRM and that you have one. Make sure that your team is actually managing leads in the CRM and that they know and are very clear on the specifics of your lead management cadences, and track. So track the compliance of them following these systems and the ultimate KPIs for your lead management system. Cool. Okay. So great to talk. This is a big topic. I'll let you digest this one. Certainly ping me if you have any questions or if we can help with these systems. And we'll see you same time, same place next week.